Alright, so here is part 5, the final series of this 5-part series. In this part, we're going to be showing you guys the final product of how the anti-cobble paver patio looked in the end. So, hope you guys enjoy this whole video and enjoy the final look of the product. Also, shoot us a like, comment, share. I appreciate all that from everyone that does that. And let's just get right into this build. So you can see this is the final section that we're working on, just putting in the main parts of the paver patio in right now. You can see we're also still grading the sand as we go along, putting 2x4s on top of the drain, the lowest point to our highest point, which is the stake in the background, and just using our floaters to float the sand and levels to make sure that we're getting proper slopage. But having the 2x4s on the drain to the pretty much on the lowest point from the farthest point, it really helps us lay out the pavers, because it'll pretty much tell us exactly where we need to lay the pavers and what depth we need, which is 2 1/4, since that's what the depth of the pavers are. Hey, what's going on, you guys? Third day on the job. We've gone pretty far in 3 days, or 2 days really, and here's the third day morning. Everything's sloping really nicely. Sam's working on this last little section right here, so we can start cutting out the border band for the pavers with our chop saw, which will make it way easier than what we first did. And back there with our concreting the border in first before the pavers. Since we put our border in first, we're gonna have all of these extra cuts now. All those cuts all the way down. So luckily Omar there's Omar right there. He's got an extra tile saw for us. There's ours. Or I'm sorry, a masonry saw. Masonry wet saw. So he's got his right there. So that's pretty sick of him to bring his masonry wet saw. So, but overall, guys, the project's coming out really nice. If I can show you real quick. Everything's looking really good. Really happy with how everything's coming out. Try to show you guys a little more. See all those cuts we're gonna have to make? Not gonna be fun. But when we do cut the border out over along the wall, we're gonna use a chop saw, so it's gonna go like 10 times quicker. So we're just gonna be finishing up this last little front entryway of the whole paver patio. Once we do finish this side up, all we're gonna have to do after this point is just start making cuts around the whole paver patio. And honestly, making cuts is the longest tedious part of the whole process. Laying it out is not too bad, but once you have to start measuring everything and making cuts, then it turns into a long process and a long ordeal. That's why you would want to try to avoid making single cuts as much as possible. And actually right there, you see that 2x4 that's on the existing concrete to the pavers. We actually have a crown right at that point where it's going to be, one way it's going to be going out the front and the other way is going to be going towards our drain, just for better slopage and drainage. So we'll have a good like 1.5 to 2% slope each way. If I did just have it go one way, it would have been more of a problem, like 1% slope. And then right here, guys, this is actually a part where I didn't like how it was sloping. It wasn't getting enough slope, so I wanted to take that section out and just put a little more sand in to raise it up, so we got more slope from the back to the drain. You can see all the stakes around the border. Once we do take those out, we ended up throwing a little bit aggregate and sand and compacting it with the rubber mallet. And we did have to go pick up a little extra sand from Home Depot, this Quikrete sand, because we need a little bit more sand. I think we only were off by 2 bags. 2 bags of 50-pound sand bags. Just so we can help level everything out still. Okay, and so right over here, guys, this is a part where I had to concrete this border in around the AC unit because there was nothing to butt these pavers up against around this AC unit. And here's how it looks when it's all completed. And you see that little tiny gap right there. We're gonna have to make small little cuts, but overall we got pretty close and lucky to not having to make cuts. We still got that string lined up, making sure all of our pavers are nice and square, straight. In total, I believe laying out this whole paver patio and getting all the cuts in took us like about 3 days, and we came back one more day, 4th day, just for the sand infill between all the pavers. We use a sand called SureLink. Really helps bond all the pavers together. Once it gets wet, it hardens and locks everything together. Here we are cutting out this drain line. We pretty much placed that cap on top of that paver, traced it around, measured from each side to make sure we know that it's dead in the middle. And then we're going to be just cutting straight down the middle of that paver, getting it to cut the circle out. You guys will see what I mean once we start actually cutting this paver. See how we're measuring it out, measuring from side to side, making sure that we circled that right dead center. Then here's the whole process of cutting it. Nothing too complicated once you get the correct measurements. So we're cutting it down the middle of where we measured. Pretty much kind of cutting it into 2 separate, or actually, yeah, about 2 separate to 3 separate pieces, because it actually broke on us, but it still worked out. And it ended up looking like the paver was pretty much cored for this drain, made for this drain. It's a good cut, even though it actually ended up breaking on us into 3 pieces. We were trying to keep it into 2 pieces. I think it broke on us because we might have not put enough cuts down the part we needed to cut out. And once we started smacking it, it broke. They were kind of hitting it with our hand right there, and actually that's when it broke on us. But we worked with what we had, so we just kind of trimmed it up, each piece, and put it back into place, and it fit like a charm. You see the precision skill when having to use the skill saw. You gotta be super careful too. Definitely don't want to be losing no fingers, because that's a little tiny piece right there. Oh, another little tip and trick, guys. Once you are done cutting the pavers, have a nice clean bucket next to you to wash them off in. And here's actually the cut when it's all said and done. And the reason why you want to make sure to wash them off is because when you're cutting them, the pavers are made from concrete, and they'll stain. If you carry them right over the paver patio, they'll be dripping, and the residue from the pavers will be dripping onto your pavers and just causing stains. Here I am helping Steven make cuts on the border all day. Just pretty much going down the whole paver patio border, making those cuts. Once we finished with that, we moved over to the wall side border, and we actually are using a bender board and a couple of border pavers, setting them against the wall and tracing it with a Sharpie all the way. And that's what gave us a nice curve, perfect curve to use our concrete saw. We're actually using a hose to reduce the dust, and then we just spray the leftover residue from the cuts right into the sand, just to get rid of it. Make sure that we don't keep it on our pavers and they don't stain our pavers. So you can see just how much faster it is when you use a concrete saw to cut out your borders. We did that all in one pass, and it literally took like 30 minutes, maybe an hour at the most, just because we had to get gas, keep cleaning as we go. And once you do that, you can pretty much just start dropping your border pavers in. You might have to make a couple cuts because that wall is rounded, but if you get lucky and have to do a square project, you're set, you're ready to go. Here's the other side we cut out. Didn't get to film any of that, but that was the other side. So look how fast that is, guys. I'm literally just dropping those pavers into place. I think I had to make a couple little cuts right here because it started bending a little harder, so I had to convert some of these paver borders into a more pie shape to flow with that bend. Then here I am setting the next side. Then once I got to that sewer clean out, I had to get the exact measurements for the border and the regular just paver patio so that we could place those pavers into position. I believe I actually took that sewer clean out off just to trace around all my pavers so I can get the exact measurements. Yeah, I kept taking it off and putting it back on, making sure that I had the right measurements and tracing around the paver border and paver patio areas. You can see we got it all put into place. No big deal. Now we're just going back to the other border side and finishing that off. Oh, by the way, guys, another tip and trick that I learned on this job that I want to share with you guys so you guys don't make the same mistake. I ordered a little too much squares because I was thinking with this pattern that I was using, I was thinking it was going to be a 50-50 type of pattern, 50% squares and 50% rectangles. It actually was more of a 70% rectangles and 30% squares. And to figure that kind of stuff out when you're figuring out what kind of pattern you want, so this was a two paver pattern, and pretty much you just want to lay out the pattern in one little section and measure out your square footage for each one and of how much square footage you use, and you'll figure out exactly what the ratio is you're going to need once you order your pavers. See, mine was more of a 70-30, so I actually had like 2 paver pallets left over, and I had to load all of those by hand, and man, that sucked because literally I had to take all the pavers off of the pallet, then I had to load the pallet into my trailer, then I had to load all the pavers back into the trailer. So I had to move those literally 3 times. It was a big hassle since I don't have anything to move the pallets by themselves. But here we are using a pressure washer, guys, just to clean off the top surface of the pavers before we did the sand infill. Wanted to make sure all the residue was clean off of those pavers, and then we're also laying putting tape on top of the drains because we don't want sand falling into the drains. Here's the final step of what we got to do. We're going to be putting this Sure-Link sand in between all of these pavers. Final process of what we're doing. You can see we've already laid out some of the sand over here. All we got to do is broom it around now, making sure that all of them get right in the nooks and crannies of these pavers. See Sam's going at it over here. It's going to look beautiful. Beautiful when everything's all filled in. Alright, so yeah, like I'm saying, we're just filling in the rest of these pavers now with sand, and I don't know why, but someone washed their hands next to the faucet, so that section was wet, so we had to wait till that dried up before we can put any sand in that area. The other thing that sucked about this whole process was I didn't have enough brooms, but I had to like kind of jerry rig some brooms up. I used my concrete poles and put it on that orange broom right there, because the little end cap piece where you can screw poles into it was broken, and it was really hard to like try to keep it together, so I had to tape it on pretty much, because like you were seeing in that little live action video, Sam was on his hands and knees pushing sand in and I was like, all right bro, we gotta figure something else out so you don't have to be on your hands and knees the whole time. And you can see once we do spread out the sand over all the pavers, we hit it with the compactor, letting all that sand really just shake and fall into the crevices of those pavers. I think we did like roughly about 3 to 2 passes on the whole paver patio with that compactor, locking in the pavers. Luckily, none of the pavers broke on us when we were compacting, because if anything does break, you do need to replace that. Take those pavers out and just put in new pavers, resand it, and recompact that little section if any pavers do break. But it does happen, so if that does happen to you, that's just what you have to do. And they have paver tools for taking out pavers that do break, so I would definitely recommend investing into paver tools to take out pieces, because it's like almost impossible to take them out since they're so wedged. And then you can see we're just kind of hosing down the paver patio now, getting rid of the excess sand that didn't get into the paver, since we had a lot of sand on top. And also the sand, once you do wet the sand, the Sure-Link sand, it does harden and really lock all of the pavers into place. But here's the final product, guys. Here's how everything looked when it was all said and done. I think this project came out amazing. I'm really happy with how it came out. It looks honestly beautiful. Customers were super happy. Now they have an amazing backyard where they can utilize and start placing whatever they want on top of this patio and really using it. And then you can see all the drains I put in. Plus, here's the artificial turf for the dogs that they do have. And those dogs, non-stop, this whole job, they were barking at me literally every day, every hour, every minute. I thought they would have gotten used to me, but that did not happen. But yeah, I think I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drains. 5 drains in this whole backyard patio. Divided everything up into 5 sections, and there's Sam getting in my shot. But so here's how it looks, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the series. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment any thoughts you guys have on this paver project. Love hearing feedback from you guys, and have a great one, guys. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram. We post daily videos and pictures of all the jobs we're on, and you'll get pretty much the soonest news of what we're up to and what we're doing.